Hello and welcome to Light Warrior Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Karen Can, author of the #1 best-selling book, Sensitivity is Your Superpower: How to Harness Your Gifts, Fulfill Your Purpose, and Create a Life of Joy. And if you are a highly sensitive person, someone who I call a sensitive soul, I would love to gift you my Sensitive Soul Empowerment Guide, the 3 ways of navigating your way to more peace, positivity, and personal power. Lots of P's there in that sentence. And you can actually go to sensitivesoulguide.com and get that free download and also get a warm welcome to our Light Medicine community on Circle as well. So, today on Light Warrior Radio, I have the very honored feeling of welcoming my soul brother, TerrenceLamont Bellows, to Light Warrior Radio. We are going to be talking about immortality consciousness, and TerrenceLamont actually met through a sacred economy movement, and we have connected on a deeper level based on elemental journeys and really healing blocks within ourselves and our community. And it's been a really beautiful journey. And we were chatting about a lot of different things. And Terrence Lamont was saying something about immortality consciousness. And I'm like, oh, I think we need to talk about this on Light Warrior Radio. So I invited him on the show today. And we're going to do some free flow stuff. So we're going to kind of tune in and tap into what's coming up as we continue here. And let me tell you a little bit about my friend here. So Terrence Lamont goes by both names together as one. Sometimes I forget and just call him Terrence. So connected to Christ consciousness and aware of all experiences that come with being in this wonderful physical dimension. He is being one day more and more clearly. I definitely resonate with that one. There's a realm of infiniteness and nothingness that we all emanate from simultaneously. And with the aid of Shakyamuni Buddha, I probably butchered that, it turns someone comes into sharing and giving from this holy place as he's able to on a constant basis. Gloria and Excelsius Deo. Thank you. And I think Terrence recently got some acting gigs here because I was telling Terrence Lamont, his voice is so amazing. He definitely had to do something like that because you just like, boom, it just resonates like this amazing vibration. So welcome Terrence Lamont to the show.
Yay. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Karen. Yeah. This is
Great to
awesome.
have you here. Yeah,
Thank you.
tell us more about your journey. Maybe a little bit about how you got to be like the director of the School of Metaphysics and all that cool stuff and acting
Yeah.
and yeah, all the cool spiritual stuff you're into right now.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome. So I want to make sure I remember Shakyamuni Buddha is just actually Gautama, the main Buddha the guy we all call Buddha.
Ah,
So yeah, so he's not the only one, obviously. So there's a way that they have found to identify them with these different names. I don't know a lot about it, but I just know that I'm connected to him. So I'm not a
mm.
Buddhist, but you know, but we're connected. So yeah, so I have been well. I'm thinking about the main answer to your question and when I try to just find it, it has to start with becoming sober. So when I was 16, I started drinking alcohol and smoking marijuana and some other little things, in there as far as substance abuse goes. And so from 16 all the way through until I was about 10, 11 years. I was about 28, I think, actually. It's about 12 years. I was Mr., party animal, whatever. I just did all the crazy things. And and I was doing that stuff before I was 16 because before I was 16, I did have I had a couple of near-death experiences. I had some like epiphany type experiences, some light filled like awarenesses, connection with disincarnate entities of different kinds
Mm.
when I was younger, and I didn't understand it, and I just didn't want to do it anymore. I didn't want to deal with it. I was just like, and so I got drunk one day, and I was like, it was like some kind of ethereal type experience that could replace that. what I could call my real self. So it was kind of like me masking. So
Yeah.
I said, oh, I don't have to deal with, oh, I can do this. And then I only have to deal with that stuff. And so I went through this like 12-year battle of fighting myself and trying to understand who I really was. But it was like, there was not a way that I could stay away from it. And
Mm.
so even all that I was doing to hide, that essence still came through, that light still shone. And as it was shining, there was this experience also of mental awarenesses that I couldn't deny. And I didn't, I had to respond to them. So there were ways that I was being moved and, directed inwardly. And my friend likes to say your inner self, he just likes to just waddle it down to your inner self. But there's all kinds of things that are happening in there. There's lots of different um, opportunities and entities and levels and all different kinds of stuff that is happening in there. And so as I began to decide that I needed to stop drinking and stop, basically killing myself, once I decided I was going to stop doing that, then it was almost immediate that these awarenesses started coming through more clearly. Things started to
Mm.
happen, physical things would happen, and I'd be able to see. I'd be like, oh, this is a message. I could understand it.
Wow.
People would come into my life and they would suggest things to me, like, for instance, Think and Grow Rich. It's a wonderful book by Napoleon Hill, one of the most best-selling books of all time. Was working at a hospital that my mom helped me get into. Thank God for mothers, right? And so it was like my first real job, right? And so I'm pushing this guy outside. I was an orderly or a transporter. So I'm taking this guy out. He's just finished his surgery. And he asked me some questions. I gave him like a couple of different answers. And he was somebody who can see. So that's what I want to talk about with Immortality Consciousness, is this way that I know how to, I'm attracted to people, first of all, who can see, like you. And then I know how to identify them. So it's not that I would come in contact with these people and not know who they are. I know how to
Mm.
understand who they are,
Hmm.
and sometimes they don't know who they are for whatever reason. I didn't know who I was because I was drinking, right? But other
Right.
people had different experiences. So that was my experience. I didn't know who I really was, but this guy could see me. And so, he said, he asked me a couple of questions, and I just gave him some really basic answers. And he's probing me, he's listening, you know. And he said, you should read a book called Think and Grow Rich. And I was like, what? It's like, yeah, you should read it. And I was like, okay. He's like, Napoleon Hill, you should read this book. I'm 26-year-old kid, 27-year-old, kid. And I'm like, whatever. I didn't even really read at that point, right? I read some books and, for school and college or whatever, right? But I wasn't like a reader, so I was like, whatever, okay. And so a couple of weeks later, I go into the dentist, and somebody, or I don't know, something, I don't know what, left Think and Grow Rich on the table.
That's so awesome. I love those.
Like, what is this? So I was like, hold on a second. This is what this dude was talking about. you know, and I don't know if we want to call it, I stole the book. I don't know where the damn book came from. I don't know who
Permanently
put it there.
bored.
you know, but I was like, this is for me, and so took the book and started
Indeed.
reading it. And that's really where I got this idea of how to really communicate with disincarnate entities, is from Napoleon.
Hmm.
He called it your individual counselors. And so these could be anybody. They could be people who were alive or people who had passed away. It didn't matter. He just knew
Right.
that you can tap in and communicate with
That's
them.
right.
And,
Yeah, you can
and
tune into Tesla, right? Or
yeah,
whoever. Yeah.
whoever, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
Washington, Lincoln, Martin Luther King, whoever, you know. And so that's where I started to work this into my life on
Hmm.
purpose,
Okay.
and yeah, so I would sit down
Hmm.
with them and I would connect with them and like have a council meeting, you know, with these, intelligent, enlightened spirits. And so that catapulted me into, after I stopped drinking and I started doing that a little bit, that catapulted me into finding the School of Metaphysics.
Hmm.
Because at that time in my life, I really needed a teacher. I needed somebody to help me, navigate this experience. And so the School of Metaphysics is that kind of an organization. It provides teaching, it provides guidance, it provides a spiritual community, and it helps you. It guides very, very beautifully. And so now I'm a teacher. I'm the director here in the St. Louis area, St. Louis, Missouri, and I have that privilege. And you were talking about peace real quickly. I'm also what we call the National Peace Ambassador. And so I work with manifesting, understanding on a deeper level, and gathering the energies of peace, for
Mm,
not only myself, but for the greater community as well.
nice. Now, is that through the School of Metaphysics?
That's through the School of
Okay.
Metaphysics. But I, me being who I am and this light that I have, within me and this, who I am, it obviously I expand outside of the School of Metaphysics,
Right,
but at the
right.
same time, we're all one, right? Essentially. So there's that experience that I'm having where I'm connecting with people for the purpose of peace.
Yes, yes. Oh, that's really cool. Now, how did you either not come up not necessarily come up with the term, but like what does immortality consciousness, what is that?
What is
Such a
that, right? Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So it's I can tell you, well, maybe we'll start with what it's not, and we can come
Okay.
into what it is.
Perfect.
So it's not fear of death. you
Okay,
know,
okay.
yeah, right. So there's that,
There's a lot of
right?
that going around.
There's a lot of that going on. so so that's like the basis almost. One of the teachers that I love to listen to, who's not in the School of Metaphysics, Richard Rudd, Gene Keys. He created the Gene Keys. He's somebody who helps me with understanding how to speak about this and getting a better feel for it. But it is, um, in a way, it is what he talked about in the Gene Keys book. It's the movement out of the fear of death, the realization that we are not uh, single, right? Yes, I'm here right now looking at you on the screen, and other people are listening to us, and they have their own two ears, right? And their own two eyes watching us and seeing us. Although that's a multifaceted experience, that's a holographic experience, which I'm sure your people, whoever like listens to this, have heard 100 times, and they maybe have experienced it. So that holographic nature is why and where we come from. So that is why we are immortal, and that is where we have our basis, right? That's where we have
Mm,
that connecting link, which you stated that what I was talking about it as the realm of infiniteness and nothingness simultaneously all at once. And so in that particular little space, that's not a place, it's not somewhere you can walk up to, right? But it exists, it is real. And in that place, that's where we all emanate from. And so there is nothing else except that. So then that makes death an illusion. And
mm-hmm,
so that
mm-hmm.
makes the fear of death a gigantic problem for those of us who are all immortal. But so that why the two words? Why immortal consciousness? Because the way that we think is what tells us what we're experiencing.
Right.
So, right. So if we keep thinking that there is death and that there's a reason to be afraid, and we watch TV and we listen to these commercials about medicine and all this stuff, which you know all about, right? They, tell us that we're,
Watch the
you should take,
news.
yeah, watch the news, watch any soap opera, whatever, it's all over the place. You should be afraid. Something's gonna happen. Something's gonna happen to your family. Be afraid, be afraid, be afraid.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we keep hearing things over and over again, well, we get indoctrinated and we begin to believe that they are true. And so the consciousness needs to be owned. I have to own my own brand of who I am, this I amness. And I have to recognize and realize, what is my truth here? Do I really believe that? Or is this something that has been beaten into my brain over and over again and I can't see now? You know. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the movement.
Oh, yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And do you find personally that you like stay in immortality consciousness most of the time, or is it like a vacillation back and forth? Like sometimes you're like having a human moment and you're like,
Yeah,
wait a
yeah,
second. Because I know I do. I definitely
yeah,
have these human moments, where it's like, oh my gosh, my dad's, blood levels are 50% what they're supposed to. He could be dying tomorrow, right? And I go, wait, wait,
right.
wait a second, hang on, right?
Yeah. So it's an experience. I mean, death is a thing. It
It's a
exists,
thing. Yeah, yeah.
you know, although where does it exist?
Mm,
So when my attention goes into fear or worry or doubt, then I know that I'm not living in the truth. I know I'm
ah,
not experiencing consciously the truth.
mm,
So we have the burn, right, that we can do in our sacred economy.
right.
So that's always valuable. Whenever I
Mm-hmm.
notice that, I can say, wait a minute, let me use the spirit of fire to release myself from this fear. Because there's also here's the wonderful thing, the yin and yang symbol, right? That's so important. The Tao, that understanding that all things are balanced is so important, right? So there's black and there's white, and or most of the time there's two contrasting colors with that symbol, right? And then there's the empty hole, and then there's the hole with light in it, basically, right? So there's the darkness and the light in
Yep.
this image. So why? Why has that lasted for centuries? And everybody works with that, accepts it, sees it as a value. Well, the deep reality of it is that there is always light and there is always dark and there is beauty in both.
Mm,
And so when we do experience these things that maybe we don't want, fear, doubt, worry, concern, whatever that is, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to, this, I don't like this. So when you get into that, I don't like nature, some people don't like light, right? So does that make them wrong or weird or bad? So that's where this balance has to come into play. So there's always darkness, there's always light, and there's beauty in both. So it's the experience of what do I want? What is my preference? What's going to move me forward? What's going to help me create what I want? Are horror movies evil? Right? It's like it's an opportunity for somebody to have fun. Some people want to ride a roller coaster. They want to be scared, right? They want to experience fear. It's exciting for some people. I don't. I despise roller coasters. I would be
I
fine if
love
there was
roller
no.
coasters.
Well, see,
Ah,
there you go, right? So this is
yeah,
perfect. Like
so
I do
funny.
not like roller coasters. So I'm just like, so, so it's like, does that mean they're evil? No. It just means that's my preference. And
Right. Like
so,
that's what you want that's what you desire to experience in this
yeah,
human form. Or
right.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I like that. Well,
Yeah,
that comes to another part where, let's just say, there's a lot of very, spiritual, maybe sometimes religious people. And I didn't tell you I was going to ask you this question, but it just popped up, so we're going with it. So, so I'm seeing on Facebook, right, about this meme that people like, that it's not resonating with me. Okay.
gotcha,
The
gotcha.
idea of the meme is that there's a winner and a loser.
Mm.
And the meme is God wins.
Oh,
So on some level, I was like, well, okay, like what does that mean? But the
mm,
people who are sharing the meme are basically saying there's all these bad, evil people in the world. They're doing all these terrible things. There are, alien overlords or human, whatever, right? But in the end, God wins, right? God wins over Satan. So that's the energy that I'm feeling, from some of the folks, and some of those are, friends of mine. It's not like, they're just strangers. But there was something about that that doesn't feel right to me personally. So I'm just curious, how would that fit into the whole immortality consciousness and, that whole we come from this hologram of the one, like in
yeah,
your personal perception.
perception, right. Okay, so let's see here. All right. Well, this is a good question. So first of all, we can start with God. It's like what are they talking about? Right? It's like what when on Facebook, in the Bible, in some other book, a conversation on the street with somebody. people say this word, God, it's written, God. And so that's where we have to start, is what is that for that person? And for most of us, it is the light, right? It is the thing that feels good, the bright, shiny thing, the thing that's positive, that always gives. In some traditions, it can be angry or whatever. We personify it, but let's don't talk about that right now. Let's just say, what if this thing they're calling God always wins? It appears that this is the good thing. There's always good, always prevails over evil, right? And so there's that, and then there's the end. What in the world is the end? It's like, what? So that infiniteness of what God actually is has no end, and we are as God, we are of God. So then that's where Immortality Consciousness comes into play. We have no end. So that's a perception that we're working with when we say God always wins in the end. I have to create this thought form in my mind that there is a beginning of this thing that I'm talking about, and that there is an end of this thing that I'm talking about. And so that's personal. That's not universal, because I have to be the one who chooses what the end is, or at least accept somebody else's idea of what the end is. So we could look at it like, let's talk about criminality, for instance. So there's this guy who commits a crime, and now he's going to go to jail. He gets caught, goes to jail, and now is that the end, that he went to jail? For some people it is. It's not for him, because he's got to go through this process still. So who's winning? Where is God in that?
Right.
You know.
Right. Right. And well,
So
and just to be fair, most of the time it's God wins, but and that's it. But I'm adding in the end, because that's the energy that I get from
well,
the people
yeah,
posting it. It's like, yeah, all these bad things are happening over and over, and then the next thing, next thing, bad thing. But God wins.
yeah.
Like
So they're right. So it's
there
like,
is a
so the back.
finiteness to it.
So what I would hope for is that people would come to a conclusion that I am God. I am the God that I'm talking
Yes.
about,
Yeah.
right? So I'm going to be the one who knows if I have achieved, or if I have received, or if I have understood, or if I have changed, and then I can mark that. I can say,
Mm,
okay, that's the end. I just learned something from
hmm.
this experience. That's the end of this experience for me in my own conscious perception of this moment and this thing.
Right. As
And
opposed to some white guy in a beard up here
right,
on a cloud winning because there's
right.
some war being waged here down on earth.
And
And
this guy has emotions, and all this stuff, and he cares about if this person does this or this person does that. It's like, that's not real. you
mm,
know so
well, it's
it,
like they say that we are in the likeness of God, but it seems to me sometimes it's the other way around, that we've created,
yes,
most of our perceptions that God is in the likeness of us. Because I
yes,
didn't really understand growing up how this thing that I was told to believe in, which I really did. I was very religious when I was younger, and didn't become unreligious until my boyfriend in university told me all the terrible things the Christian Crusades did that I didn't know about. And then I was totally like, like shocked, and became an atheist. So I really did think that everything that I was told was absolutely true, and that the God was outside of myself, and I was to pray to this being, or this bigger than life person, to help me out. And it was like a prayer supplication, and like, please help me, please, like that kind of thing. I never thought about me being God. In fact, my mom would even say, she's hilarious. She's like, thank God that we are not the gods. They have so much work to do. I know, right?
yeah,
Oh, it's
that's
so
awesome.
funny.
Yeah, yeah. So there is so that idea, right, of that word gets a lot of people, it just doesn't, a lot of people don't like to say it, right?
Yeah.
um there's a perception around it because of Christianity, right?
Hmm.
But that's Christianity. That's not God. right?
Okay.
So
Okay.
so there's this idea that is purported by the Christian perspective, like what you're saying, that there is this he, out there, and that we need to be concerned about what we're doing based on his desires,
Mhm.
based on what he wants us to do. If we
Right.
don't do what he wants us to do, then we're bad, all of that stuff, right? So that's out there, and that's a big deal. That's huge. you know so then there's another way we could say, there's different words, right? Source, creator,
Mhm.
all that is,
The
it's
infinite. Yeah.
infinite, all these, there's other ways we could say this, and it's the same. So all of that resonates. I also love Hawkins, David R. Hawkins. He wrote a book called Power versus Force, and he
Mhm.
has the map of consciousness, right? And so I love how he helps us to understand the reality, the truth is one of the things that he does. He has a map of consciousness. And so he calibrates these words that I'm saying. All that is, infinity, God, creator, source, they all calibrate at 1,000. They all are the same. So what does that mean? Well, it's an idea within consciousness.
Mhm.
It's what is it within consciousness. So it doesn't matter what we necessarily call it or how we try to personify it. It doesn't respond to that. It's infinite. It's beyond that. And so if we're going to be connected with it, then we have to shut up. You know,
Mm.
we have to close ourself, this ego, this thinking, this I know, all of that part of ourselves has to let go. It has to be released so that we can be in that space of infiniteness and nothingness all at once. And so
Mm.
when you can drop your preferences, as some like to say, and you let go of the good and the bad and the right and the wrong, and you just be, then you'll know that, and you'll be able to be there in that moment. But then in that moment, you still will realize, I have this physical body.
Right.
I'm still here. So so then it's like, okay, well, now what is your choice? What do you,
Mm.
from that space, what do you choose?
Yes. Well, and that's exactly been my experience over the last several years is that the beingness. And my first, one of my first spiritual teachers said to me, it was very, very smart. I didn't get it at the time, but as you know, I'm a big doer, right? Love doing things. Very, love
And
doing
you
this,
you
loving
get
doing that.
things done. Yeah, you
Yeah,
get
I
them
do get
done.
things done, right? And I'm one of those folks. So type A, as they used to say. And she was very kind and said it in a way where I didn't get defensive. Yeah, yeah, she says, Karen, what you'll realize is it's not so much what it is that you do, but who you are as a being as you're doing what you're doing. That makes the biggest difference. And that's
Yes.
how you're going to change the world. And I was like, it really sat with me. That's not exactly what she said, but that, more or less paraphrases it. So it's my beingness that heals the world, not my doing all this stuff for people.
Mhm.
Huh? You know?
Correct.
But now it's like, oh, that totally makes sense to me now. Because as
Yeah.
I'm being and then that stillness that you're talking about, connecting to that infinite nothing, all at the same time, that's when the miracles tend to show up, or at least in the 3D physical world that
In the
I'm
3D world,
observing.
yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
that was like, whoa, that's a synchronicity. This person showed up, this opportunity showed up, and this connected with this and this. It's like, whoa, this is fun, guys, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so life can be fun. And let's talk a little bit about challenges.
Okay.
Challenges. I know you kind of delved a little bit into that, but let's go deeper into it because, sometimes people have that sense of, okay, TerrenceLamont, Dr. Karen, I'm meditating, I'm working on my vibration, I'm feeling more peace. Well, how come this bad thing happened? Right?
Yeah.
How come my car broke down? How come I lost my job? How come my dog got sick? Is it my fault? Like,
Yeah.
what am I doing wrong? So the common question is, what am I doing wrong and how can I do it better? So would love your take on how to
Yeah.
answer that.
That's awesome. So it's the fix it. That's what I hear is,
How do I fix
it's
it?
like, yeah, how do I fix it? It's like, well, what are you gonna fix? What are we trying to fix here? Are we trying to change reality? Is that is you
Obviously,
know,
it's like, I do not prefer this current reality.
right,
I'm doing my best to like have not have pain. And why do I have pain? Right? That's the
right.
underlying question.
And it's like, well, it's because you're here. It's like this. How long has this been going on? Did the dinosaurs not feel pain? I mean, everything that has ever entered into this physical reality came into this physical reality with the same basic parameters. We
Parameters. I like that.
yeah, we have these certain box that we're in because we chose to come here and be in these physical bodies. The soul is present, but the soul is not the body. So the soul there's a difference, right? There's that projection. We're a projection of our higher self, our soul, our spirit, our godness. We're a
Hmm.
projection of that. So in this more dense reality, people are see when we start learning people what the people you're saying what they're talking about is, oh, my perception is moving out of this physical world, and in that place, oh, things are so wonderful, and it's easy and it feels good over here. I can
Ease
talk
and
to my
grace,
guy.
we call it.
Yeah. I can talk to my guides, and I can have all this. This is cool. I can meditate. And it's like, oh, I feel good, right? And it's
Everything
like, okay,
happens for me, and we
yeah,
expect that to mean like there are no problems.
there are no problems. But no, that's not where this is. This is physical. You can break your arm. You can get sick here, and that's good. That's actually a positive. That your dog can get sick, actually, or die, because you can then build from that. You can
Ooh.
learn from that.
Okay, I'm
And
I'm
so
having that French Fresh Prince part where he says, "What you talking about, Willis?"
the moments that we have understanding is why we're here. We're here for that's so some people like to just call it learning. So
Mhm.
why is my body, why does it exist? This is not all that is. But my attention is here. So why is my attention here? It's here so there can be a cycle of this happens, whatever this is. I can observe this, and then I can make decisions based on what I'm observing, and I can see how my creation then works. There's the infiniteness that we're talking about, the God that doesn't learn, it doesn't, do things in the similar way that we do here. So there is that kind of split attention that is occurring as we are on the planet. And in that splitness and that secondary viewpoint, that we're looking at ourselves from, there's a learning opportunity here. So the things that happen, whether we like them or we don't, we can learn from them. We gain something as a soul so that we get to the point where we now remember and understand that we are the same stuff as God.
Mm,
Jesus said, greater works than these, so shall you do.
right.
Be perfect as my heavenly Father is perfect. So he was trying to teach us, he was trying to show us that there are these little nuances that are happening, these little things that we call problems or challenges or whatever we want to call them. Can we reverse that energy? Can they be opportunities? Can they be learning experiences? So it's like, how do you move? If you can move your attention just a little bit, then you can see that. Yes,
Hmm.
we cry. Yes, we feel pain. All of that is true. But is it really bad? Is how we have to think about it. Why is it bad? Who said it's bad?
Who
Who
labeled
makes
it
it
that
bad?
way, right?
Who labeled it that way? You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's well, I used to be, I grew up, with that belief that if I did everything right, if I did everything I was told to do, if I was compliant, then I would have a beautiful, happy life because I wouldn't make any mistakes.
Mhm.
And I think to this day, I think my, my mom and her and I are super, super close. I think she still has some of that belief, but it hasn't borne out in reality, in the life that I observe anyway. And what I realized is I was so afraid of mistakes, of making mistakes, I couldn't be joyful. I couldn't be happy. I was just always worried I was going to screw up.
Yeah.
And yeah, and every moment was, you talked about fear earlier, every moment was about avoiding getting in
Yes.
trouble or avoiding making a mistake. And I couldn't really live and enjoy my life because it was always about doing the right thing. And I think some people get into anxiety because of that.
That's that's the first step, right? When you start, you're told that, you start trying to do that over and over again, and you notice it's not working, then anxiety, that's the first thing that shows up. And then that leads you into the medicine, right? Into, not the medicine of the elements like what we talk about, but the medicine of science, right? So now it's like, oh, we're gonna change your mood, we're gonna fix you, you know, and it's like, no, this is important, that I have this experience so I can go deeper and get clear about this. And
Mm,
you can keep going through those experiences, those pain, suffering, and you can learn. This is the immortality piece, the immortality consciousness. You keep going through those experiences and you keep realizing over and over again, I made it. Look at me.
ah,
I'm still here. How am I still here? If this was so bad, why didn't I disintegrate? It's like, what am I still doing here? And it's like, oh, because you still have something to build. You still have something to
mm,
create. So you take that pain and you create. I had a friend,
I like that.
somebody walked by my building a couple of weeks ago, and she was just talking about how she, like, I was with another friend and we both were talking to her, and we just met her. One of us, somehow the phrase, how are you doing, came up, right? Something like that. So we're talking about how we're doing. And she said, you know what? I have made it through 100% of my bad days. And I was like, wow. That's right. So am I.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
I think I'm doing pretty damn good, because I have.
Yeah, that's a good point. I wonder whether, I don't know how that even got conditioned, that phrase got conditioned within us. How are you doing? It's funny because in Australia they say, "How are you going?"
Oh,
And in North America, we usually answer incorrectly. We say, "Well, by car, how are you going?"
right.
Right? They're like, "No, no,
Yeah,
no. North American talk. Okay, how are you doing?" Right? So, but
right.
more accurately, not well, maybe not accurate's the right word, but would be, "How are you being?"
Yes. That's the landing point, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And I like to look at it like we say human being. I like
Yeah.
to play with that and say, a soul being human on earth.
Mm.
And so then
Yes,
that's a
or
whole
playing
different way,
playing the role of a human on
playing
Earth.
the role of a human on this earthly plane. you
Yeah.
know what is that
Yeah.
like? Okay, you're just putting on your outfit, then you're just putting on
Hmm.
your creative moment is happening right now. This is your moment. I'm ready for my close-up, Mr. DeVille. And it's like, okay, here we go, action. you know
Right, and it's more like improv, right? So we get to
yes.
choose in every moment of every day how we respond. And maybe we
Yes.
don't have full individuated control of our whole environment, like, Bruce
No, no.
Almighty, but
Yeah,
but we get to choose how we respond, which then the universe seems to respond to our response
it
to
does.
create the outer whatever 3D
the
material world
syner-
that we
the
get to interact with.
synergistic experience, right? The
Yeah.
one within the many. We're all co-creating this world together.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I know some people want to know about your thoughts of this whole law of attraction. It was very popular with The Secret. I was a big, fan of it, and wasn't so easy as what they said in the movie. Um, and I was like, I have a negative thought. Oh no. Oh
Right.
no. Are my negative thoughts more than my positive thoughts? That's
Yeah.
terrible. So I get into that judgment and that worry and all that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
and doing my best to change my thoughts. So give me your Terrence Lamont take on the whole law of attraction. Is it real? Is it not real? How does it apply here to immortality
Sure.
consciousness?
So it's a universal law. So it's absolutely real. And there's other universal laws, right? There's not just the law of attraction. There's one universal law, speaking of Jesus, that he gave us in words, which is seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all else will be added unto you. And so that means that you seek first the highest, your highest state, the best that you understand, the good that you know of. You reach for that, and that is heaven for you. And then that's when you start to receive the other things that you need. And so the law of attraction is embedded in that law,
Mm.
whereas the things come to you rather than they just dissipate and fly away. No, they come to your attention so you can see them. So that's how the law of attraction works. So what are you seeking becomes the reality, and not what are you putting on your vision board. you know, it's what are you actually really in depthly, deeply within the soul, within the deepest part of yourself. What are you actually seeking? That's
Oh.
that's what's coming back.
Mm, mm, mm.
So you might be doing it wrong in general, if you don't know what you actually want, if you don't know what you're actually reaching and seeking,
Well, some
reaching
people would
for.
say, "Well, I'm seeking the job promotion,"
Yes, but I
right?
can't
And
get
then
the
that,
job. I keep getting fired. I keep
yeah.
having this problem or this problem. I can't advance. My boss doesn't like me, but all the stuff, right? Well, that's because you're not actually wanting the job advancement. That's not
Mm.
really what you want. And
Aha.
but you don't know. You're just going through the motions. You're doing what they
Yeah.
told you,
We think that
right?
that's going to give us whatever it is that we haven't labeled what we
Yes.
want yet. So we
So
think
you
we
have
want
to,
the job promotion.
yeah, so you have to go deeper
Deeper.
and understand your real self. So I'll tell you a story about the secret and a lot of my own personal experience. This is how I learned this, because I had an experience, and this is where everything is in experience, is in what is your personal, what's happening for you, what are you actually experiencing. That's how you know. It's not by reading the books, it's not by following
Oh,
the
yeah,
teachers.
yeah, yeah.
It's by your real, this is me, this is what happened, this is, this is what I know, because it happened. Here I am, this
Right.
is what's going on. you know? So I'm gonna a bunch of plugs here. So you already said The Secret, right? So The Secret came out, I believe it was 2006,
6.
possibly.
Yes.
Yes. So I had watched it a couple of times. I didn't quite understand it, like you're saying. I was like, "What is? Yeah, whatever," you know. And then I hooked up with this organization, this company called Primerica, and I have to say this. I've said a couple of different other names and stuff. Primerica is an incredible opportunity. It is a wonderful business model. It's very
Mm.
powerful. I believe in what it is doing and what it can do for people 100%. It wasn't for me, so I'm no longer engaged, right? But I learned so much from being engaged. And so one day, this is before I even found the School of Metaphysics, I'm sitting in a training for this. This is about insurance, about helping people, about making money. So we're watching The Secret. We got a
Oh, in
projector
class?
in this class
Oh,
meeting, in this
wow.
meeting,
Okay.
Saturday morning.
Huh.
We're in here this Saturday morning. We're watching The Secret, and I'm starting to get in that same flow, that same rhythm of what is this? It's like, okay, I hear what they're saying, great stories, whatever, but what really is this? And in that moment, I hear, in that moment of release and surrender, to not be indoctrinated, to not just do whatever I'm being told, I went into this emptiness space, this kind of freedom space. And in that space, a guide told me to leave. An inner
Mm.
level being said, leave. Didn't give me any basic, direction really. It was just get out of here. And I heard that. And this was one of the first times I can ever really say that I heard something so clearly. And I heard it and I was just like, I looked behind me. Like immediately, I was like, it's like, is somebody messing with me? What's going on? And then I went back to watching the movie, and I heard it again, and it was louder and it was more abrupt. Leave now. And I was like, whoa. I was like, okay. So I got my stuff and just got up and left, right in the middle of the meeting, right in the middle of watching the movie, I just left. And
Wow.
I had been dedicated to being in that meeting. We had this meeting every Saturday, right? I
Yeah.
was dedicated to be there because I knew the value and the power and the opportunity, everything, right? But I listened and I
Hmm.
got up and I left. So second plug, I go across the street to a Borders. That was when those were still prominent, kind of everywhere, right? And I would always go to this Borders because I could go in there and I could it was my library, right? I would go and I would read these books and just hang out, drink coffee and not pay for anything. I would just look through stuff and just relax and so I was familiar with this place. So I figured that's what I'm going to go do. I don't know what's going on. I'm just going to go do my thing, right? And I go over there, and they had a glass door. On the glass door, there's a flyer for the School of Metaphysics for Dr. Laurel Clark doing a lecture in about an hour called "The Law of Attraction and Other Secrets of Visualization."
Hmm.
And I was blown away. I was like, what is happening? It's like I was just over here with the law of attraction, and now I'm over here with the less like it's like, why did they tell me to leave? Who I didn't, I was just my mind was blown, right? I had no idea what was going on. But I said, listen to your guide, do what they said, just do it. And so I go into the Borders, I turn around and I see them over here. The School of Metaphysics people are kind of getting ready for the lecture in the coffee shop area. And I'm like, okay, this is really happening. They're here, so I'm here. And so I go upstairs. There was a pretty big Borders. They had an upstairs. I go up there and I do my thing because that's where the metaphysical section was. So I go up there and read some self-help books and stuff for like an hour. And then I'm like, okay, I guess I got to go down here. I mean, I got to leave. That's the only door to leave out of, So whether I was going to go over there or not, I had to at least walk by them, So I said, okay. I came down and I was guided to just go ahead and go sit down and listen to this lecture. And so this teacher, and she was the president of the school at that time. She's talking about the law of attraction in her book, that she wrote. It's a great book. And her aura was so big and bright. And I just couldn't stop listening to her. I followed every word. I heard everything she said. I was like, this is the law. Okay, now I understand. I was just seeking, right? What
Mm.
was I seeking, right?
Mm.
I'm looking at the secret and I'm not understanding the secret. So what do I want? I want to understand the secret. And the secret movie is not doing such a great job of helping me understand it. I know it's real, I know it exists, but I'm not really understanding it. And
Gotcha.
so I go over here and I find a teacher
Wow.
to explain it to
Wow.
me, you know,
It's
and it
amazing.
was right, so amazing. And so I'm like, wow, so people actually know how to do this. People actually care enough to spend an hour talking about this. She wrote a book, to help people. She's this is important to her. She understands this. And so that drew me into the School of Metaphysics after seeing somebody who could teach and who wanted to give. And I bought the book, everything, So I was like, okay, this is what I wanted. What I wanted was the deep understanding. I didn't want to be
Mm.
entertained. I didn't want to watch a
Right.
movie,
Yeah,
right?
because it was kind of surface, right? We found out later,
Yes,
but I mean, it
yes.
is entertaining for sure, and it did awake a lot of people to the possibilities. But then you were like desiring to go deeper, to really get it, to understand it, and to actually utilize it practically in your life.
So the universal properties of things that exist showed up in my life to
Yeah,
give me
yeah.
that opportunity.
Yeah, that is cool. And speaking of opportunity, if people want to connect with you, I know you have this cool YouTube channel that people connect with
Yes.
you. Can you share with us the name of your YouTube channel?
Yeah, it is called We Are Valuable Media. So it's gone through several incarnations. I've had other people who I've worked with since 2011, actually. I've stuck with this idea of creating media that is valuable for people, that
Mm,
really does what I'm talking about, that helps us to go deeper, helps us to more fully understand ourselves. And what is that? Well, sometimes I tap in, to that universal consciousness, to that understanding, that deep rooted sense of connection with ascended masters, Buddha, Jesus, Lao Tzu. Sometimes I can get in contact with them and I can connect with them. Some people like to call it channeling. I don't really call it channeling, but I can speak through that connection and I can share. So that's one way that I use We Are Valuable Media. And another way is I started talking about my lock journey. Like I had a strong thought process, like you were saying, when I was young, that my hair had to look a certain way. I believed that my hair had to look a certain way. It had to be fairly short and cut in a certain way. I had to go to the barber and spend, however much money it has been over the last 40 years, 5, 10, 15, 20 to $30, whatever it is, I got to pay this and I got to get this guy who knows what he's doing to cut my hair with these clippers. And that's the only way I can be. I believed that for a long time. And but then as my consciousness started to shift and become more homogenous, I started to understand that I could do many different things with my hair. you know. So that's something that I made a video about, posted about, and I have also Facebook. There's some Facebook pages out there called We Are Valuable Media, and
okay,
so
okay.
so people can connect with me on both of those.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, so what we'll do is link those with the podcast so people can find you. That's great. Now,
Yeah.
Terrence Lamont, before we go, I would love for you to share maybe your personal way of how does one connect to that infinite and nothingness, that still point. How is it that you get there?
That's a really good question. Yeah. So one of the ways that I have been doing it is really it's the simplest way possible is through what I was saying earlier, and I have never said this before, but I like it. It's funny, through just shutting up. Through through just sitting down and being quiet, and we like to call that meditation, right? There's one, you can breathe with it. You can get yourself to a state of relaxation through breathing and then just be quiet and you can hear the truth.
Mm,
But if some people will tell you, just like the law of attraction, oh, it doesn't work. Meditation doesn't work. I sit down and I have all these thoughts and I can't
mm-hmm,
stop my mind from going, And it's like, guess what? It's not the point to stop anything, to stop the thoughts. It's just
mm,
for you to stop. So as you sit and relax, the thoughts, your mind is not going to stop. Your mind doesn't shut down and not exist. you know, you still have a mind. So you're going to have the thoughts. So then you just allow.
mm,
And as you continue to allow and just be present and just keep breathing, then the truth will show up. What you need from the inward silence will show up in the silence. You will hear it, you will see it, you will know it. So you just keep doing that consistently and you will get to that point.
mm. Cool. Very cool. Yeah, I've always noticed that when the guidance comes in now, in your one case where they said leave now, that's pretty loud. Mine tends to be very subtle, if it's going to be something like that, and very nonchalant, very no attachment, just kind of a thing. Like
Yeah.
sometimes people think that their intuitive, yeah, guidance is like, you got to do this now or else. And I'm like, I don't think that's your intuition.
Well, they're missing in that case. They're missing it. They're not there because of what I'm saying about the silence. It's like, how do we be silent?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, that is definitely the key. The key. I have my way, I teach stillness through observing internal movement, and because my mind is like, I notice that as long as I get into the body,
Mhm.
that
That's the,
helps me a lot. Like if I
that's
just
the other, yes.
feel my body, then my mind just goes, "Oh, what do you want me to do? Okay, I'm feeling. All right. What am I
Yep.
feeling?" And it just
That's,
gets so busy doing that that it doesn't have time to do
it doesn't
anything
have time to
else.
think. Yeah. Yes.
That's my little trick. That's my little trick.
That's another
Yeah.
wonderful way. Yeah. Get into the senses, right? Just
Yeah.
feel into whatever is actually occurring out in the world. Yeah.
Well, and actually, the silence one really enjoy too because I'm experimenting with how to teach. I'd call it Stillness 360, but this particular one is being aware of the sounds around me uh, in all of its totality. So behind me, in front of me, to the sides. So I'm outside in my little pyramid sitting down, and so I'm hearing a bird here, and then I hear the wind over here, and then I hear the UPS truck over here. And it's just this amalgamation of these sounds. And as my attention is trying to take it all in simultaneously, because before, if I'm doing something focused, like I'm reading or my cell phone, I don't know there's any sound. Like I'm totally ignoring what's there, right? But if I'm like just focused on everything in the peripheral, it's like that's another doorway to stillness. The body is one of my doorways, and so now I'm experimenting with the clairaudience, if you will.
Mhm.
It seems like you're very clairaudient, so the hearing as the other,
Yes.
and it gets me seemingly to the same place. So it's kind of neat. I love these experiments. It's so fun.
It's fun, right? It's just, and that's the other part is have fun,
Yeah.
enjoy yourself. you
I was just
know,
gonna say with your takeaway, another takeaway that this is it, It's like enjoy your lives. It's like I tend to be so serious, but as you can see, folks, we laugh a lot, Terrence Lamont and I,
we do.
when we're together.
Yeah.
Oh man, this is great. Well, Terrence Lamont, thank you so much for being here today. I had such a great time chatting with you and talking about immortality consciousness and all sorts of other things. And so we are Valuable Media on YouTube and also on Facebook is where people can connect to you. And
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's been wonderful being in the sacred economy movement with you.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just really great. Just the
That's a
growth
blessing.
and just yeah, totally feel blessed. So I want to thank you, Terrence Mott, for being here today and spending your time with us.
Yeah. Thank you for inviting me, Dr. Karen. It was wonderful.
Mm, yeah, my
Love to do it
pleasure.
again. Definitely love to do it again.
And then everyone who's listening in or watching, please, make sure that you check Terrence's links out here. And then if you're not in my community, the Light Medicine community, we also invite you there for free just to connect in a heart-based way to like-minded souls or with like-minded souls. And thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, we'll see you on the next Light Warrior Radio episode. Bye for now. Big love,
Bye, everybody.
everyone.